Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to the show. Tonight we have a special guest, Danny Dumaresque, and after last week's events, I would expect that people are very interested in talking about what's happening with the power grid in our province. We've had some really rough times the last week. I and others have certainly called it a crisis, and we need to know what's going on. There's been many questions. People are asking questions. There appears to be a lot of confusion as to the state we are in. So tonight, Danny Dumaresque, of course, past board member of Newfoundland and Labrador Hydro, former MHA, and certainly a very active caller with respect to Muskrat Falls, with respect to our power grid and system, and with respect to Newfoundland and Labrador Hydro. And we'll bring Danny in on the show now and welcome Danny to the program. Hello, Danny. Are you there?
Yes, Sue. Thank you very much.
Well, I mean, we might as well start. We all know that we've been through a pretty rough week. People are asking all kinds of questions as to how this happened. What kind of state are we in now? I know that, Danny, they listen to you on a lot of the programs, but sometimes, of course, those programs only have 5, 6, 7 minutes for discussion. Tonight we have 2 hours, and we need to go over all of the situation that we have in the province. So, you know, as you and I discussed, I guess maybe what we should start with is helping people understand what the current situation of our grid is.
Yes, thank you, Sue. I appreciate the time and look forward to elaborating as much as I can with what I know over the next couple of hours. And I guess the backdrop to my position tonight is that certainly, Houston, we have a problem, and we have a very significant one. And my hypothesis is that after Muskrat Falls, we'll have a less reliable system than what we have now. And so to be able to back that up is going to take a little while, and I appreciate the time to do so. But just to put this in context for people on exactly what the island has to operate its lights with, and basically this is it. We have a total supply, a total capacity of 1,946 megawatts of power. If everything was working perfectly, and we had firm power being produced in all of the generation available, we have 1,946 megawatts, of which Hydro owns a little over 1,500, and the Exploits Valley makes up another 110, and then we have some wind, 54. We have 2 wind farms, 27 each, and customers, principally Newfoundland Power and Corner Brook Pulp and Paper, make up about 240 more. But in total, 1,946 megawatts is what we have. And, of course, the major part of what Hydro owns outside of the Beta Spear is the 465 megawatt Olyrood generating station, made up of 3 generators, 2 170 megawatts and 1 at 150. So that's essentially what we have for capacity. Now, what happened this past week or so essentially is that we came to a problem with generation. On December the 26th, Boxing Day, as a result of where we were, we found ourselves in a situation where we only had 1,420 megawatts of power available. So total capacity 1,946, but we found ourselves for different reasons on Boxing Day with only 1,420 megawatts of power on our ends. Temperatures are down, storm is ensuing, and of course the peak demand on our system is increasing, and so all of a sudden we had the control room obviously looking at this and says, we got to make a move because we can no longer meet the demand of our customers, be it residential or industrial.
So when people say, okay, well then here's the power, what happened? What kind of mess are we in currently, and what do you suppose caused? Let's get a little more specific. Let's talk about Holyrood a bit. Let's talk about maintenance and planning and so on, because as we all know, I guess, I mean, when you're planning a grid, an electrical grid, and what you're seeking is reliability, you have to have enough power, you have to have enough generation, there has to be enough available, and certainly all this couldn't have been caused by the fact that, oops, we got a little cold in the North Atlantic. What kind of state are we in now?
Well, when the Premier finally came out of hiding and confronted the situation, certainly both herself and Mr. Martin kind of threw up their hands and said, well, what a surprise. I don't know where this came from. This is so unbelievable. But when you look at their own documents, this is absolutely false. I mean, the documents that have been put out and including on their current websites, for example, the peak demand was forecasted in 2011 for 2013 to be 1,632 megawatts of peak demand would be required at some point during 2013. So for them to come out and say that this was being a big surprise to them, it certainly was not. And that's one thing I want to identify. But what got us into the problem? Well, first of all, there has been no additions to the generating capacity of the island since 2003. The last generation was brought on, Granite Canal, 41 megawatts in 2003, and since then we haven't seen any new capacity, and that is where I believe the system is fundamentally broken down. And since about 7 years ago, staff in Hydro certainly identified the need for a third transmission line from the central to the western Avalon. And let me talk a little bit about that, because that certainly does impact where we are today. The fact is right now that the two lines that are coming in are overloaded, and because they are overloaded, we're having undue transmission loss, somewhere around 12%. And indeed, when we see the load increasing, there's no question that the growth for the last 10 years has been very much focused on the Avalon Peninsula because of the closures of the mills in Stephenville and Grand Falls, and certainly a line, I think, back in shut down in Corner Brook. We have seen a major shift, and the load growth is on the Avalon Peninsula. But nearly 7 years ago, the engineering department identified a need for the third line. And what would this third line have done? Well, according to Nalcor's own documents, what this third line would have done, it would have brought in energy that would have been able to displace the need for Holyrood. And it would have been able to bring in green hydro power that we were spilling in central Newfoundland. And indeed, since 2009, with the expropriation of the exploits generation assets, well over 120 megawatts of power has been spilled and gone into the ocean when we certainly could have used it here on the Avalon. And what it would have done specifically, it would have saved us tens of millions of dollars annually by virtue of not having to gear up Holyrood as early in the fall and not keep it on as long in the spring. And certainly the numbers that have been associated with it, anywhere from under current cost of fuel, is around $70 million a year. So you're talking, major money. And also what this third line would have done, it would have put less pressure on Holyrood. We wouldn't have been demanding the generators to be going at full speed and full output. And, of course, it would have given them more downtime so that the necessary maintenance that could have been done on Holyrood would have been able to be done when they were not required. So that's the situation with the third line. The transmission was totally neglected, and indeed, as a result of that, the taxpayers, the ratepayers, are out tens of millions of dollars, and certainly over the last 4 years, somewhere around $200 million. And by the way, the transmission line was put forward in 2011 to the Public Utilities Board, but and at the time the budget was $209 million, but on December the 17th, now that line was put on in an application in September of 2011. October the 11th, 2011, the PUB made a request. 38 questions were asked, why do you need this line? On December the 17th, after not answering one of these questions, Hydro decides to cut the line from its budget. And as I read from a story by Ashley Fitzpatrick from the Evening Telegram on that day, Hydro stated approval for the new line in the 2012 capital budget is a lower priority than approval for Muskrat Falls. So clearly in 2011, Muskrat Falls was the priority. I suggest that it was the priority for many years before 2011, and it certainly taxed too many of our human resources, and too much money was put in there at the detriment of that particular transmission facility. Now, where is it today? Last August 7th, actually, another application was made to the Public Utilities Board for the 2014 capital budget. And lo and behold, again, the third line is again requested over a 4-year construction period to a total of $268 million. Again, the PUB said, well, where's the rationale for this? When are we going to see the background and show us how many megawatts of power has been spilled, how many dollars would be saved at Holyrood? And certainly that's the kind of information that would be required to make a decision. But up until now, again, Hydro said they would have that information filed under a separate application, and it would be in sometime in 2013, but for sure by the end. Of course, now we're in mid-January, and there's still no background information. There's still no information coming from Nalcor to give the PUB sufficient information to make a decision on whether this goes ahead or not. The other major problem, that's the transmission one, but the other major problem that got us to where we are today is, of course, the neglect of the Holyrood generating station. And again, we see a track record here of total ignorance to the opinion that have been given to Hydro. In 2003, 2005, there were expert reports done for Hydro saying that we had to do a rewinding of units 1 and 2. And, of course, that was not done. In 2010, there was an international generator expert came in and looked at them, and they recommended replacing units 1 and 2. But, again, none of that was done. As a matter of fact, on December the 18th, 2012, one day after Nalcor and the government had the big party at the Confederation Building to sanction Muskrat Falls, Newfoundland Hydro gave the missive to the pub that you should take 4 of the projects that were required for the upgrading of Holyrood off the table, because now with the approval of Muskrat Falls, the sanctioning of Muskrat Falls, they no longer would be necessary. So, and this was quite startling to the PUB, because they identified, they knew that these repair and upgrading jobs at Holyrood were absolutely required. And as a matter of fact, on February the 4th, after getting a letter from the Hydro, they said, are you really sure you want to do this? Because, you know, after reviewing this over the last 10 years, we see that these units need timely and appropriate upgrades and maintenance. And if they're not done, it could lead to a very big problem. And that's the same thing that Hydro identified in its 2011 planning document, and said, in the event of a loss of a unit at Holyrood, the existing transmission system would be unable to supply loads above 1,280 megawatts, and of course it would give us a crisis situation. So all that was ignored, and of course when December 26 came and we were down to 1,420 megawatts, and the demand rose rapidly during the storm, we found ourselves to a point of no return, and we had to go then to the rolling blackouts in order to be able to sustain anything at all.
Well, I mean, people are, as I said and just mentioned earlier, I mean, people are very, very confused. In Newfoundland and Labrador, in Canada, in the free world here, you would expect that hydro or your grid reliability, as you said to me, 100% barring an act of God. And it was very, very hard, I guess, for people without seeing a storm as such and cracked poles and downed lines and things like that. We can understand from sleet or snow or heavy winds. But, I mean, people just found themselves without power. And we're all hearing about the great energy warehouse that the government talks about. They talk about, being so endowed with power, we can sell it off to North America. But, I mean, really, how serious a situation, I think we can't stress it enough, how serious is it a situation in 2014 for Newfoundland and Labrador in any way to have to go to a rolling blackout from a situation of things that were not ready, not repaired, and not in place for the grid?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as I said right from the beginning, we have the capacity if we paid attention to the operation and maintenance of it. And as Hydro has admitted, that on December the 1st, when they were looking around and seeing what they had on the system, they had the backup system. The one at Ardwoods was 50 megawatts of power. They were replacing an alternator there, and of course it never got done, and it was unavailable. We had 25 megawatts of power over at Stephenville that wasn't available because, they had trouble with the fuel line or something. And again, it was under maintenance. But, I mean, these are things that you must be doing in the summertime. You must be doing it in the downtime. And, of course, when you have the generators that are major generators like Unit 1 and 2 at 170, 175 megawatts each, well, you lose one of them, you're losing the integrity of your system because the hydro failed to be able to put more supply into the grid by virtue of the other opportunities that we had. And as I said earlier, we finished the small hydro in 2003 with Granite Canal, but there were three others. There are three other small hydros ready to go, and they should have been built, and that was Portland Creek, Round Pond, and Island Pond, which would have brought roughly another 80 megawatts of power onto the system. And indeed, if they had been rolled out as the previous ones, Lions Lake, Cat Arm, then Granite Canal, and of course bringing on these small hydros would have continued to give us 6 or 8 years of growth from an hydro perspective, and kept less pressure on Holyrood for two reasons. Holyrood was never meant to be a core generator of power. It was meant to be a backup, and for good reason. The cost of running it with the price of oil presently is certainly a major factor to keep in mind. So we would have been much better off to have built those 3 small hydros. And the other thing that people have talked about for quite some time is the wind power. There's 2 wind farms right now that are producing on the south coast of Newfoundland, 27 megawatts each. And many people thought that the island could certainly the system could support more wind. And the first study that's been done on that, after being forced to take a look at it, was international company, McDonald, did a study, and that was in 2012, and they concluded that yes, indeed, even the island isolated system could take up to 270 megawatts of wind power. Of course, over 200 megawatts more than what we have now. And there's absolutely no question that if we had kept adding the small hydro and the wind in incremental stages, along with the building of that third transmission line to bring the power, because you've got to keep in mind that if the 3 small hydros were built, because of where they are, they still would not have been able to affect the situation on the East Coast in the Avalon, because there was no line to carry the power in here. But in retrospect, and clearly in my opinion, that if the planning department of Hydro had gotten the support from the executive of Hydro, if they had not been totally fascinated and dedicated to the Muskrat Falls project and done the planning for the integrity of our system and added those small hydros and wind along with what we presently have, there's no question in my mind that Holyrood would not have had the same kind of pressures, and indeed we would not have had the same kind of cost on the ratepayers, and we would have had hydro green energy built and paid for in the savings of oil alone over the last 7 or 8 years. So that's where we are. That's where we are now. And that's a scary situation because there's no other generation on the table right now. And tomorrow morning, if number 1 generator fails like it did last year on January 11th, and as it did again this year, we're going to be back to rolling blackouts again. There's no question about it. That will be the common practice, and I'll be awfully surprised if we go through this next 2 or 3 months without that type of situation. And certainly, it's a great shock to I'd say 95% of the people in the province, and fundamentally, it's unfair to the people of the province because it should never have been allowed to happen. The neglect of the system should never have been allowed to occur, and I really believe that the PUB, if it doesn't have its wings clipped by the government, if it's allowed to go out and do the kind of investigation now and public hearing where people have to come to the PUB and testify under oath, that I believe we will certainly find out that the executive of Hydro and Nalcor certainly fell down on the job in a big way. Too many of our man hours and person hours of labor, and too much of our money was put into Muskrat Falls at the detriment of the total system.
Danny, if you'll allow me to start with this, let me just say that, like looking at any grid electrical system, I've, as one consumer and one resident of Newfoundland and Labrador, as a citizen here, I know better. I know enough to say that if we've run out of power, which was the claim, if we ran out of power, then either one of 2 things is happening here. One, there's gross incompetence. Because you can't let a system run out. You plan 10, 15, 20 years ahead. Or 2, someone's not giving us the real truth here, because that just simply doesn't make sense. Now, as we were leading up to this show and putting it out on the social networks that it was going to be on, there were a lot of questions that came in. One was around the area of confusion, where when Premier Williams announced this deal, initially, it was to bypass Quebec so that we could sell power on into the North American grid. And then it became, the power is needed for Labrador. Then it became, now we got to bring it in here because we'd like to green up our supply and take off Holyrood. Then it became redundancy. Then it became we don't want to be an isolated grid. We want to be interconnected. And people are genuinely confused as to what this Muskrat thing is all about. When we look at hydro documents, annual reports dating back to the 70s, they predicted that we were going to be out of power in the 80s and the 90s and 2000, all those predictions. And at a time, too, in the 80s, Danny, when our population was, 40, 50,000 more than it is now. So the population has gone down. We've got 2 mills closed. We've got fish plants closed. We've got some schools closed and businesses shut down in rural areas and so on. How can this possibly happen? People are just really confused.
Yeah. Well, it happened because for the last 10 years, as I said, from the time that Granite Canal came on in 2003, for the last 10 years, the system has totally been neglected. There hasn't been any addition to the generating capacity on the island, but the people in Hydro knew full well that there was a growing demand, and there would be as we were getting increased residential building on the Avalon Peninsula, and of course we had Valley Inco is now a real factor, and it's going to take 85 megawatts of power. So all of that has been well known. The number of housing starts, the population, all of those things have been planned and accepted by the people at Newfoundland Labrador Hydro and the planning department. But while the people over there knew, the executive and the people that were bringing the capital budgets to the PUB for approval never brought to the floor of the PUB the kind of projects that would have, enhanced the generation, and it would have upgraded the existing generation so that we did not have a catastrophic failure in Holyrood that we have experienced. Let's look at it. We, during the last 10 days, we lost Unit 1 totally out, 100%. On Boxing Day, we had the fan motor go, and there was nothing available to replace it. So that was reduced down by 100 megawatts. It was 2/3 reduction. And, of course, even a couple of nights ago, we had another problem that the switchyard had a problem there, and we lost number 2 generator. So within the last 2 weeks, we have had all 3 of the the generators at Holyrood down and out. That should never have been. And when they talk also, about reliability, they also come up now and say, well, one of the reasons that we have this problem is we have aged infrastructure. The equipment is getting old. That's the reason they're trying to tell people now is the reason we have the problems at Holyrood. Absolutely nothing could be further from the truth. Abitibi out in Grand Falls is operating as a paper mill since 1907. Over 100 years it was there, and it didn't operate without power. We had, of course, regular maintenance on these facilities. The Deer Lake Power facility is there longer than Holyrood. We've had quite a few other systems around the province. One down there, the Petty Harbour, was built in 1906, and it was generating power for 70, 80 years. So there's no question. It's not a matter of the age of a piece of metal. It's a matter of making sure that the components are properly maintained. And for those people that have worked around generators, like I have in fish plants, you know full well that every few years you have to go in and replace the bearings, replace the fans, keep the thing up and running, same as you would do with a car, or as they say, somebody said the other day, with a snowblower or whatever. The fact is, the last 10 years, while there has been some money spent, I'm not saying there hasn't been money spent on it, but by far the money to be able to add new generation that would have taken less pressure off Holyrood, that's the generating and transmission, certainly was not done, and that's why we are in this precarious position today. And what people have to remember also, Sue, is that 2017 is not going to be the answer. And as I said right from the top, I believe going forward we're going to have less reliability after Muskrat Falls than what we have now. And I'm sure that's going to be startling to some people, but I believe that it's going to be the case for quite a number of reasons. And certainly it'll take a little bit of time, but I'd like to elaborate on why that's going to be the case.
Oh, absolutely. I think understanding now, or going into now, this whole Muskrat piece, like how much power is actually coming over, and if they're talking about giving so much of it to Nova Scotia, guaranteeing so much there, taking off Holyrood, as they say, they're going to get rid of Holyrood. They're going to put I mean, really, Danny, let's talk straight about what Muskrat Falls and this project means as it relates, and by the way, then have some left over in Labrador, some left to sell to North American Grid. Let's talk about what's really out there. Let's go into exactly what you just said.
Yeah, well, the situation right now is this. In Labrador, we have somewhere around $12 billion worth of investment on the table for the development of the Labrador Trough and Voisey Bay Underground. So at a minimum, we're looking at 300 to 400 megawatts of power that are going to be required. And it's starting now. We have one company up there, Alderon, that's looking for 60 to 80 megawatts of power and can't get it. IOC is expanding, and they will use up the last 60 or 80 megawatts that's remaining on the recall. So there's no question that Labrador in the next 5, 10, 15 years are going to be looking for upwards of 300 megawatts of power. So Muskrat Falls, let's do the math. Give it 800 megawatts of power. Let's assume there's going to be hardly any transmission loss, and we get 800 megawatts of power. Well, you know, we got 300 for Labrador. That brings us down to 500. We're going to bring the cable across to the island, and we're going to close down Holyrood, which is 465 megawatts. So what do we got left? 35 megawatts. We're going to, we've already guaranteed to Nova Scotia the equivalent of 500 megawatts of power. And the government can put it in whatever language they like, but the UARB, the equivalent of our PUB in Nova Scotia, made a ruling that unless they got 170 megawatts for 35 years for nothing, and then they said, well, that's not good enough. We need to have 330 megawatts extra in order to have our blended costs, because they are going to incur cost of building that line. They need to have their blended cost at 9 cents, so they needed the 500 megawatts with the last 330 at 5 cents per kilowatt hour. So, you know, the bottom line is that I don't know how many masters we can serve, but it's not going to be through Muskrat Falls that we're going to be able to guarantee Nova Scotia 500. We're going to take care of Labrador at least 300. We're going to close down Holyrood another 465. So, you know, we got 1,500 megawatts or so, 1,500 megawatts, without looking at any increased demand with the building of all of the new homes and the businesses that come with that on the Avalon, and certainly throughout Newfoundland and Labrador.
So, you know, I mean, we're hearing all these numbers, and you know, obviously things aren't adding up. And you sign the document and you commit to Nova Scotia, and of course the first one, which is 20%, and then the second one, which is, you know, as you said, they wanted their blended rate down. So we have to agree for so many decades that we have to supply so much per year, or at least an average of so much per year. So it's not like we can back out of that. So I mean, at this point, it's adding up to we're not going to have any power at all. We'd have to keep it all on and generate some new stuff on the island even to keep where we are.
Absolutely. And while we have a bit of time, maybe I'd like to probably elaborate a little bit more on exactly what is the deal that we have with Nova Scotia, because I think a lot of people are confused by that. The deal is that initially in 2010, when we signed on, the deal was that we would give Nova Scotia 20% of the power for 20% of the cost. And that equates into we are going to give them 170 megawatts of power. And let me be clear about this, because this is something that really people don't understand. 170 megawatts of power is going to give us absolutely zero cash in our bank account in Newfoundland and Labrador. For 35 years, by virtue of putting that 170 megawatts of power over to Nova Scotia, we're not going to get one red cent. Now, Nalcor says, and the government says, well, that's not really the case, because while we're not going to get any money, we're going to get a line back in 35 years for $1. Now, Sue, I have paid a fair bit of attention to that part of it, and of course I looked into the reliability of the submarine cables, and that's certainly going to tie in later on in the discussion. But when the Manitoba Hydro did a review of the project, and they hired an Italian company which is an internationally renowned company that advises on reliability of submarine cables, they both came back and said that these types of cables have a maximum life of 40 years, and as a matter of fact, there's only one such cable in the world that managed to stay in service for 47 years, and the last 4 years of that particular cable, it was only doing about 30% of its capacity, so more like 44 years. And one thing that I found that hasn't gotten any discussion yet is that in terms of the reliability of the cables, on December the 20th of this past year, the Public Utilities Board approved $14.5 million for Newfoundland Power to replace the submarine cable connecting Portugal Cove or St. Philip's to Bell Island, right in our own backyard. And this is the real testament, in my opinion, the real example of what we can see for the life of submarine cables. And when I started to look at this, I discovered that this is the third time that these cables are being replaced in the past 82 years. So here we have a situation that in the 100 feet or more of water at its deepest in the Tickle, we have cables that have really no major tides and no major temperatures, variation of temperatures. They have averaged a life of 27 years. So in actual fact, the only evidence that we have in Newfoundland and Labrador of the life of submarine cables, they are not lasting any more than 27 years. So the life is closer to 25 than it is to 40 or 50. So bring it back to where I left it a little while ago. The bottom line is, with the deal for Nova Scotia, is that when we get a cable back in 35 years, it will have reached the end of its useful life. And at that point, if we want to then send power to Nova Scotia, we will then have to spend another $2 billion to be able to build a new cable. So all of a sudden then the economics totally change again. We won't be getting anything back for $1 that we would be able to use. And one of the things that I have argued for some time is that, why should we give away this 170 megawatts of power for 35 years to get a cable that will be useless and not get a cent of revenue? Because the bottom line is that if we kept this power, and by the way, for those that try to get a handle on what 170 megawatts of power mean, it's just to think about it, that Valley Inco, when it's full production, it's peak production, they will use 85 megawatts of power. So basically, we're giving away to Nova Scotia the equivalent power to have two smelters like Olyrood, like Valley Inco going. And, of course, you know the employment that was around this project, some 4,000 construction workers, and there's going to be hundreds long-term, high-paying jobs there for decades to come. So I've always argued, why would we bother to try and put a line to Nova Scotia when obviously it's a line going nowhere? The thing that Danny Williams and crowd never told us in 2010 is there's no transmission capacity between Nova Scotia and New Brunswick. There's no transmission capacity between New Brunswick and the marketplace in the eastern United States without adding billions more in transmission infrastructure. And so the bottom line is that the original scheme of trying to send power to the eastern seaboard was nothing only a smokescreen, and it just wouldn't happen anyway. But the bottom line is to our province right now that we are going to, we have committed legally and committed to shipping out this amount of power. And just to put a dollar figure on it, the 170 megawatts of power at the current industrial rate that we're going to be charging in Newfoundland and Labrador, which is around 8.5 or 9 cents, would be the equivalent of $3 billion cash to Newfoundland and Labrador Hydro, really to the taxpayers of Newfoundland and Labrador, over 35 years. So let's get this picture straight here. This is what we have committed to do. Rather than keep the power here in Newfoundland and Labrador, attract more industrial customers, like Quebec is doing, by the way. They're going to create 10,000 jobs over the next 4 years by inviting in industrial customers at cheap rates, and their rate right now for industrial development is 4.7 cents per kilowatt hour. So you can see that there's a very big incentive for industrial customers to come into Quebec, create jobs, and Quebec has concluded that it's better to do it that way because there's more revenue that would come from the sale of that power at 4 cents combined with the income tax that people would pay in the construction and the operation of these facilities in the long term. So that's where we are with that particular component of Muskrat Falls, and that's why I have argued for some time that if there's anything possible that we could do in 2015, if we can get this government back. I mean, I know for me, if I was a part of it, I would certainly take the first order of business and cancel that maritime link and keep our power here in the province so that we could industrialize Labrador and certainly fulfill the requirements that we have for giving reliable power to the people of the island.
Well, I'll tell you, Danny, it's funny because, and you're right about Hydro-Quebec. Of course, they put a great emphasis on the usage of power for industrial development because the industrial development brings the long-term jobs. So you're not just flying out power, you're actually associating each megawatt developed with so many jobs within your society, and they would be long-term, long-standing jobs, as you mentioned, smelters and so on. I mean, you talk about, aluminum smelters, other things, of course, that Labrador does not have that other northern countries do enjoy and do have. Obviously, they go about their business, the mighty Hydro-Quebec, by making sure that the jobs are in Quebec and they stay in Quebec. And here we have this chunk of power going out, as you point out, that's going over to Nova Scotia. I'll call it as a subsidized rate, and they're going to be competing with us for industry and business. And we're, what are we getting out of it? That is the big question. I mean, if you don't need the line, for instance, if you're not going to deal with Nova Scotia, you don't need the line. That's here nor there. The cost of the project then is the development of the project and putting the lines where you want to within Newfoundland and Labrador. And also remembering, too, that when the Upper Churchill was done, one of the statements out of the government then was the Upper Churchill, well, that's that now. That's going to help everybody and bring in some revenue and so on. We all know what happened with that. But the second statement was that Lower Churchill, the Lower Churchill assets, were going to be for the development and expansion in Labrador, so that industry could grow and industry could be, put there. What my understanding is, the jobs associated with Muskrat Falls outside of the construction jobs, and you get them no matter why you construct Muskrat Falls, you'll end up with construction jobs anyway. But after the construction is finished, I mean, the number I heard was 30 to 40 new jobs, and we're talking about an $8 billion project.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, one thing that I would like to say is that Labradorians right now have to take a serious look in the mirror. We have to seriously consider where we're going to go with this project because of what you just said. I mean, when this project was announced and we got into what is it, what's in it for Labrador, of course the government went on with how we're going to use the power to be able to industrialize Labrador. And nothing further could be from the truth. I mean, right now we have a power requirement in Labrador West. Everybody knows there is nothing in the Muskrat Falls project that will put a line into Labrador West or up to the site of the new mine being planned in the Labrador Trough by New Millennium, which is somewhere around 200 kilometers north of Labrador City, and that's by putting a pellet plant at Robinson. Where is it? Down just out from Labrador City there at Ross Bay Junction. Sorry, I mean these are areas where the planning is already well along. We have but there's no transmission capacity. There's no lines being attached to the Muskrat Falls project that will deliver that power to these areas that are going to generate thousands of jobs. We have an industrial proposal in the Lake Melville area that cannot go ahead because they do not have power. We have Voisey Bay that's looking to go underground, but we do not have any line going to the north and into Voisey Bay. So again, Labradorians are going to certainly should sit back after this little while has passed and say to themselves, what are we actually going to get? Right now, the people from Mary's Arbor to Cartwright are having to live and suck in dirty diesel forever. According to the PUB, the Newfoundland Hydro has failed to come up with any other plan. Even though they said they were going to do so over the last 3 years, they've failed to show anything to the Public Utilities Board that would take all of the people from Mary's Arbor to Cartwright off the diesel. Same thing from Rigolette to Nain. I mean, the diesel generators that they have are expensive, and they limit the people's ability to even transfer to electric heat in their homes. And, of course, the cost is also insurmountable. The business community in that area are paying the highest rates in the province for electricity. So, when you start to look around and say, what is it that we're getting? I mean, the bottom line will certainly be, and just to put a financial number on this, the 800 megawatts of power over the next 50 years will equate to somewhere around $40 billion in value. And, of course, all of that, 98% of that, is going to go to the island of Newfoundland and the coffers of Newfoundland and Labrador Hydro and Nalcor. But the people of Labrador are going to have continue to have diesel generation on the coast. We're going to continue to have difficulty getting electricity to start the new mines that are on the table, and there's nobody can question the need for the the continued paving of the highway throughout Labrador, and having a new road to northern part of Labrador to open it up. So, when it's all said and done, when you look at the cost benefits, there's no way should Labradorians be putting up with this, because in 2017, 2018, all we're going to know is, if you've got reasonably good ears, you'll hear the whistle of the electricity going over our heads, coming out to the coast of Labrador, and going across the Strait of Belle Isle. That's all we're ever going to see of it, and that is absolutely untenable. And I'm certainly going to be talking to people, having conversations with my fellow Labradorians over the coming weeks and months, and say to them, what do you think? Do you think it's acceptable that we should sit back and allow this to happen? Because I can tell you that once the generator is turned on at Muskrat Falls, it's all over. You say 30 or 40 jobs. I think you're being high. I'd say it'd be closer to 20 jobs that will be created for the long term for this project from Labrador's point of view. And there's no question that we deserve better. There's no question we should be treated better. And of course, that comes back now to the issue of whether there should be a fixed link to the island of Newfoundland from Labrador, because that's a project that I believe is long overdue, and certainly I believe that a lot of Labradorians are on side with having this project done. And indeed, people from St. John's and every part of the island are also on side with having this project done.
Yeah, I'd like to, as we segue into that, which is obviously going to be an important part of the discussion, I mean, let's just look at the options here. The island in an isolated grid situation, and nobody should be fearful of that. All they have to do is look at Iceland and other jurisdictions. There's isolated grids around. Isolation sometimes is nice in the fact that you're not pumping bad stuff back in. But let's just take that and leave it as an isolated situation. You upgrade your facilities, you add new generation in, you knock off the need of a line, let's say, coming across from Labrador to the island, and you take that power in Labrador and you use it to generate and attract industry and fuel the industry that's already going there and wants to grow. And the cost difference in doing the types of projects. Nova Scotia should be the least of our concerns with respect to a provincial package. I've heard people say, well, doing this power and getting the loan guarantee, well, it's all a great Canadian green project, it's Newfoundland and Labrador doing its share to green up Canada. Well, I'd like to remind all of our listeners out there that Labrador is already greening up Canada with 5,000 megawatts from the Upper Churchill. For per capita perspective, we green up more than anyone else in the country. So this whole idea of greening up and working with Nova Scotia to help them achieve their energy independence. They're on up now talking to Hydro-Quebec anyway. They'll be looking all over the place. What about what are the options, Danny, before we get into the tunnel? What about, let's look at the cost, because from a consumer perspective, right now we're kind of sitting in the middle. There's some provinces with lower prices to consumers, some provinces with higher prices to consumers. This is a major expenditure. And then you talked about the transmission, the additional transmission needed. You also talked about having to replace subsea cables over periods of time, stuff that's not even costed. And we're going to drive our power probably to the highest rates in the country. And all of this because what? We want to green up Canada, help Nova Scotia with their energy goals, try to say they're going to do something to green up the island, when, in fact, when you look at the numbers, they're not adding up. So aren't we really, from a consumer perspective, this has got to be the worst of all storms on both sides, both the Labrador and Newfoundland equation, when our option is let Labrador grow with the power and put the industry up there, have the island continue to be isolated. There's no reason for it not to be, because power from Labrador can travel throughout if we want to get into that. And look at what the cost difference would be if we took that approach, and also the absolute benefit of jobs, industrial development, and growth in Labrador from this new development of power. I mean, isn't that fair?
Yeah, absolutely is fair, and certainly I really believe that 98% of the people in this province are really horror-stricken by the thought that we are supposed to be living in the golden age. We're supposed to be in the energy warehouse. We got all this power. How come my rates are going through the roof? And let me bring you up to date on where I believe that is now going to go. Of course, in Labrador City, Wabash, in Abbey Valley, Goose Bay, and from Murray's Arbor to Nain, the government has now decided to come back and nail these people with a 27% increase in the coming year, in this year, 2014. And let me just say that in 2010, when this project was announced, I went on radio in Goose Bay and said that, what was going to happen was that once this project was complete, we would then be under a total provincial integrated interconnected system, and indeed the PUB would then be instructed to make sure everybody, whether you're in Labrador City, Wabash, Churchill Falls, Goose Bay, or anywhere else, you would pay the same thing as they would here in St. John's. And, of course, everybody said that could never happen. No, that will never happen. Well, we're well on the way to seeing that happen right now, because I can tell you that unless the government provides explicit direction to the PUB not to implement this rate increase, the PUB, under its existing guidelines, on a cost of service basis, they are going to raise those rates by the 25-27% in this year for the people of most of Labrador. And the other thing that people don't realize right now is that we are going through a process on the island where the rate stabilization fund is being depleted. There's going to be emptied. And that's well over $100 million there right now. And what's happening is that money is being split and taken as a one-time payment and being allocated between the residential and industrial customers on the island that is equated to a zero increase in the rates. As a matter of fact, there's supposed to be a slight decrease. But I'm telling you that for people who thinks that this is something that's going to continue, they're going to get an awful shock come the mid-year or next year when Hydro has to come back and look for more money. And I'll tell you the reasons they are going to have to look for it. In 2009, the Newfoundland government passed a secret order in council that gave Newfoundland Hydro the right to earn a return on equity at the same level as Newfoundland Power. All the while I was in government, and certainly governments after me kept the rate of return for Newfoundland Hydro at around 4.5%. And that was for good reason. Hydro is not supposed to be into the business of making money. It's supposed to be into the business of providing a reliable source of power at the least cost option, and if there's any profits that are made after they live up to that commitment under the Electrical Power Control Act, then they return the money to the Treasury. But now Nalcor wants to be the Dallas of the world, and a bunch of people over there who believe they're J.R. Ewings and that type of oil people and gas people and energy people. They now are not satisfied that they got to do this type of operation. They want to be into making significant money. So the government of the day agreed that upon the application and approval of the next general rate application, which is this year, they are going to be allowed to charge the rates that will give them 9% or 8.89%, doubling of their rate of return, and be able to do the same as Newfoundland Power. So they will be able to make $70 or $80, $90 million a year profit, and of course it will all stay over to Newfoundland Power. And if Nalcor then wants it to drill more oil wells up on the Northern Peninsula, or go down under the water looking for good oil plays, well, that's what they're going to use the money for. But that is totally wrong, and therefore, the rates that the light bill is going to go up in a very significant way as a result of that doubling of the return on equity. And, of course, the other thing that's going to be, there's no question that when the application is made to the PUB, which, again, I don't know if people appreciate this, but as a result of the loan guarantee that we did with Ottawa, one of the conditions of that was the federal government said that you have to go to the Public Utilities Board and you have to recover 100% of the cost of servicing the total debt of building Muskrat Falls. That's the interest on the construction, the bricks and mortar of construction, and all of the associated costs, everything that the SNC Lavalin and everything is thrown in, and then the year over year, the full cost of this project has to be guaranteed to be returned on the backs of the ratepayer. So the big question that nobody has answered at this point, and I don't know how it's ever going to be borne by the people of the province, but there's no question in my mind that we are into increases of 10 to 20% of electricity in this coming year, or by the end of 2015. And when 2017 comes along and the PUB has to return on the backs of the ratepayers the cost of Muskrat Falls, I suggest there will be at least another 50% increase in that first year in order to be able to meet that guarantee that we had to give Ottawa in order to get the loan guarantee, so we could give power to Nova Scotia. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, you listen to it and it just gets worse and worse. And when you really stop and you think about what's going on now, as you know, Danny, many people have been calling for, let's have a pub absolute, go through this, gut this, find out what's going on, because we will remember, like, as consumers, if we just take it from a consumer perspective, not having pub unfettered with this access to go into the sanctioning of this project without, by inserting things called independent assessments where perimeters were always put on what somebody was allowed to look at. I mean, if you go out, if I say, okay, I've looked at something, now I want you to look at the same thing, and here's the perimeters, and I just need you to add up my math, you can easily have someone come back and say the same thing. So, the time now, like, for instance, there's a Facebook page out there now called The Truth About Blackouts, encouraging citizens to get out there and file a complaint under the Pub Act, and people are calling out all over the place, obviously, for this to happen. You've got the government out now saying it's going to do some form of independent review, and here we go again. Is this going to have the same sort of parameters that every other review they had, where they can go out and they can call something independent, but of course you can only look at what it is we want you to look at. So, pub not being part of a process that ultimately the consumers pay for in a project is absolutely ridiculous. Like, pub is there so that if someone wants to spend money and that money is going to be recovered by going to the consumers of electricity, then it has to go through pub, up until now, that is. And it can go through pub only in certain ways and so on. So what do you think right now is needed to get to the bottom of this now?
Well, there's no question that the initiative taken by the PUB is a very, very good one. I certainly commend the people at the CEO, Mr. Wells, and his other commissioners for taking this approach. I certainly hope that the government now is not going to clip the wings and throw the legislative book at them so that they can't do the kind of inquiry that is absolutely required. So the terms of reference that will come from the PUB, hopefully by the end of this week, will certainly determine then to what extent they can do what needs to be done. But one of the things that must be done as I said earlier, is that right now Muskrat Falls is going to be deemed unreliable power for at least 3 to 4 years after the commissioning of the line. So Holyrood is going to be required, according to testimony that Nalcor has given to the PUB, going to be required for at least 3 to 4 years. So that means that if we look at it now from a public utilities point of view, we have got to prepare our generation and transmission of power on the island for at least 8 years as opposed to 3 years or 4 years, because I don't think, even in the best scenario, I don't think that that Muskrat will come on until 2018. So by looking at having to prepare the transmission and generation of our electrical system for 7 to 8 years is certainly going to be a very meaningful inquiry, and of course there's going to be some difficult decisions are going to have to be made with substantial amounts of money, and that's where I am looking forward to seeing the PUB get the hearings, the public hearings set up so that the consumer advocate and other individuals, people like David Vardy and Ron Penny and many others, Cabot Martin and all of these people that have looked at alternate forms of power generation, that these people will get a chance to go in and have the people from Nalcor sit there and answer the questions as to why you didn't do what you were supposed to do to ensure timely addition to the generation, timely addition to the transmission, and having your existing Holyrood in a state of absolute number one readiness. That's the kind of inquiry that's absolutely necessary, and it can only come, the truth will only come out, and the commitments can only be made if they're going through a quasi-judicial procedure where their testimony is going to have to be given under oath, and certainly they will have to answer the questions that are put to them by the respective players, be it the industrial users, the consumer advocate, and other individuals that have certainly shown tremendous insight into the requirements as we go further. The fact that we're going to have an independent assessment of the system, whether it be the transmission, generation, Newfoundland Power, Newfoundland Hydro, and the PUB by the government, to me is not where it's going to be. I mean, we saw how the independent assessment of Muskrat Falls took place. It was basically behind closed doors that Manitoba Hydro went out and they went in and said, show me your papers, show me your numbers, and we'll add them up and see if you added them up correctly. And yeah, okay, you've done that correctly, so let's come out and give it a stamp of approval. Well, if the government wants to go ahead with that exercise, then there's nothing we can do to stop them. But certainly the only useful exercise right now is for the Public Utilities Board to go out and have the public hearings, call on the experts, and have the people then question the parties that led us into this mess under oath, so that we can get the truth and we can go on from there. And I would just like to say as well that when it comes to reliability, as I said from the top, when Muskrat Falls comes on, in my opinion, it will be less reliable than what we have right now. And the reason I say that is because for several reasons, but one of them is in the MHI report when they did an assessment of the capacity for the transmission lines from Muskrat Falls to the Labrador Straits and from the Northern Peninsula into Soldiers Pond. They looked at how these lines were set up to be able to withstand the climatic loadings that have been outlined under the generally accepted standards in Canada. And they said that, since this is such a critical piece of infrastructure to the provincial electrical system, that the lines that are being put up by Nalcor is insufficient to be able to give us the reliability that we need. And even after they did the second analysis, the DG3 analysis, they concluded that Hydro was still sticking to its guns, and instead of putting the lines there that would have a factor of 1 to 50 is what Hydro wants to do. They insisted that they should put them there with a factor of 1 to 150 or 1 to 1 or 500. I know that's technical, but basically what they're saying is that right now it appears that Hydro is trying to do it cheaper and trying to say that what they're planning is going to withstand the most severe climate, and there's no way do they have that kind of information to give the reliability to the system. And certainly even after that assessment, MHI concluded that they felt this necessary upgrade to the transmission line was necessary, and it wasn't going to be put in place at this point in time. The second major issue is the submarine cable. I gave an example there earlier of what happened in Belle Isle and what happened with these cables, the submarine cables. First of all, on their shelf life, but the other major issue with the Strait of Belle Isle submarine cable is the potential for it to be destroyed by virtue of the fact that it's going to be laid on the ocean floor. And they've had different studies done over the years, but the Labrador Straits is no Belle Isle. There's no the Conception Bay and the Strait of Belle Isle are basically a mouse and an elephant when it comes to what kind of activity we have there and the potential for a total disaster coming across, because we can spend $8 or $10 billion building this system, but the most critical element of this system is going to be that submarine cable bringing it across the Strait of Belle Isle. And the major problem there has been identified as the possibility that these lines could be torn up by icebergs. And, the only studies that have been done, particularly one that was done by Secor, quite surprisingly to me when I read it, because I grew up in the Labrador Straits, basically only about 10 miles from where the cable is going to be laid on the floor. And I always thought that, certainly the shallow water on the next to the shores of both the Labrador and the Northern Peninsula would be the place where the ice could really play havoc with the cables and destroy them rather quickly. But when I read the Secor report, it said that its analysis of the floor of the Strait of Belle Isle, quite surprising to them, showed that the deepest scouring and the most frequent scouring of the ocean floor by icebergs occurred at the deepest water in the Labrador Straits, somewhere around 250 to 300 feet of water. And therefore, the fact that the cable is going to be going into 3 holes from both sides, on the Labrador side about a mile, and on the Newfoundland side about a mile and a half. When it comes out from that seafloor and it then goes onto the bottom of the ocean, it's going to then be going the extra 25, 27 kilometers on the bare ocean floor, which, by the way, there's going to be no trenching, which was certainly recommended by some of the analysis that was done. And I also have to tell you that I had a call from a diver who was part of a team that went down and basically spent the summer with the mandate to see if there was sufficient subsoil in the Labrador Straits to be able to bury a cable. And, of course, they came back after spending all that time there and concluded that there was absolutely no topsoil left to the Labrador Straits, that had all been scraped clean by icebergs. So there's not going to be any trenching, and therefore, you know, some people have argued that the icebergs, you know, scraped the bottom 10,000 years ago, and it won't happen again. But certainly, I have seen icebergs there in recent years that by far would destroy whatever is on the bottom. And can you imagine what would happen if these cables got hooked by an iceberg? So that's one of the things that is that right now it does have absolute risk to it. It's real, it's clear, and in other parts of the world, for example, the one that I just mentioned an hour ago, Bert, with the cable that had been in place for some 40 years, they actually even put a zone around it where vessels couldn't even go to. You couldn't even throw over a scallop bucket, or you wouldn't be able to put out a trowel where you would have a hanker to it, because it could destroy the cable. I don't know if they're contemplating doing that in the Labrador Straits or not, but you can see how fickle these cables really are, and all they're going to have in this particular case is a couple of meters of 7 or 8 inch stone on top of each of these cables, and with 7 or 8 knots of tide coming down through the straits, I don't know how long they're going to be last. I would suggest not very long. So you're going to be into a situation where you're going to have a naked cable on the straits floor, open to the elements, particularly icebergs. So that is a real risk.
Yeah, I mean, when we look at it, you know, Danny, first of all, none of us are able to say, well, it can't happen, it can't happen, it can't happen. That's ridiculous. And what really I think people need to understand, let's follow this through. Let's say the worst happens, the line gets hooked, there's a disconnect, okay? So this power source is no longer there. Holyrood has since been decommissioned, and we've guaranteed a certain amount of power going to Nova Scotia. And we're left to have to essentially capture all that power for you know, native power for ourselves. So that's got to stay here. What are we paying them? 120% of market value for stuff we can't deliver? Like, and meanwhile, we're without power? Like, what kind of a mess? None of these discussions, all we've ever heard has been when there's something come up, there's a PR campaign. When somebody chooses to ask questions, they're naysayers, conspiracy theorists. This is an $8 billion project. It has, you know, energy reliability. There's issues of competitive ability with respect to attracting industry to Labrador and things of that nature. And nobody wants to say, well, what if this line breaks? Well, if this line breaks, and we're, you know, along this process, and Holyrood is down, and you know, we still have to deliver power across. I mean, what kind of a mess are we actually in?
Well, Sue, just on that note, even in the MHI report again, and Nalcor concedes this, by the way, that you don't have to have a iceberg tear the cables up to have a problem. As a matter of fact, in many of these cables around the world, even in a year or two after they have been put onto the floor, they have internal faults, because it is quite common to have issues, and in particular in the Labrador Straits, what you're going to have is a tremendous current coming down, very, very cold water. These cables are going to be chock full of energy, emitting very much heat, and you only need a very, very slight crack in one of those lines to have water ingress and corrosion take place immediately, which would fault the line. And if there's a fault, or if it happens to be broken with icebergs, either one, they have put a time of at least 6 months that the line would be out of service, simply because of this. There are only 2 or 3 vessels right now in the world that have the capacity to be able to come to the Labrador Straits and be able to pick that cable up from the floor and be able to repair it. And that is a major issue. You're not talking about the 24, 36, or a week or anywhere else where people can get up on a pole or put a new pole up or anything like that. But in the Labrador Straits, you're talking about having to commission a specialized vessel, of which we're very few, and you have to now book them like 2 and 3 years in advance in order to be able to get them. So it's not like you can just pull one off the shelf. So, we are going to be in one hell of a mess in 10 years' time. For example, we got Olyroot shut down. We had no third line in here to bring in power. Even if we're connected to Nova Scotia, and even if that one is working properly, there would be no way for a backup because you can't bring power into the Avalon. And of course, the money then that would be wasted to try and repair that cable. It's just mind-boggling, and as I said before, in the case of the cable going to Nova Scotia, it's going to cost us $2 billion to replace it. In the Labrador Straits, I'd like to deal with that one for just a little minute again. In the Atch-McDonald report that was done in 2004, they concluded that if the cable was put into a tunnel, it would be a credit of $390 million to the proponent. So unquestionably, over the last 10 years, that has increased. So there's no question in my mind that right now that by putting the cable into a road tunnel would be able to give the ratepayers or the taxpayers of Newfoundland and Labrador a credit of at least $1 billion. And I say $1 billion simply because we know right now that that line is going to have to be replaced within the next 50 years, which is the amortization period for the total project. And with what's happened in Bell Island, with what's happened in every other part of the world, we know that cable is going to have to be replaced. So we get $500 million now in the next 2 or 3 years. Whether it's 25, 30, 35, or 40 years, we're still going to have to pay another $500 or $600 million. So we're well over $1 billion that we're committing at the present time. And when it comes to the cost of the tunnel, that's something that I have investigated very extensively to the point where I went to Norway in October and I saw what was happening over there. I went and dealt with the experts, the people that have built over 900 tunnels, 32 of them under the water, and they have perfected the drill and blast technique to the point where they have been able to keep their costs in current dollars somewhere around $15 million per kilometer. So when we are now looking towards reliability, let's look at this. If we were to put the submarine cable in a road tunnel, which would basically be, as I saw in Norway, would be 2 tunnels, 2 tubes they call it, 18.5 feet wide and 18.5 feet high, and they would be then very secure with steel panels all around them and a pumping system where basically you have a paved bottom to it, similar as you would have in a city where you would be able to have the manholes and you'd go down and you would run your cables underneath the pavement, and that would then give you a dry environment and an accessible environment, so that 2 things would happen. In the case of a problem with the cable, you'd be able to access it immediately by people, as opposed to trying to go around the world to find a ship that would cost you tens of millions of dollars. The second thing is that by putting the cable into a dry environment, you would be able to get 100 years of life out of it, as opposed to 35 or 20, 30, 40, 50, whatever. So you'd be saving at least another $500 million. So for reliability, you'd get 100% reliability. In the case of an internal fault or something that would happen, you'd be able to have a reasonable chance of getting the power back on it within hours and days, as opposed to weeks and months. And certainly that's the kind of reliability that people deserve and expect from an electrical system. And when it comes to financial management, of course, we know that if you can kill 2 birds with the 1 stone, then that's exactly what you have to do. And we have this opportunity right now. We know right now that we can go and build this road tunnel, put the cables through it, and be able to do it for much, much less than what it's going to cost us to be able to put this present cable in place and having to replace it within at least once within the next 50 years. And that's where obviously people are looking to go to. They want reliability. They want their money spent wisely. There's going to be enough money wasted as it is. So I believe that many people are open to seeing this type of approach, and hopefully some sanity will prevail and we won't miss this golden opportunity to do both things. And I guess at this stage I'd like to, if you wouldn't mind, taking a couple of minutes to talk about the virtues of the road tunnel and what it would mean to us.
I will. We're going to spend the next half hour now talking about about that, because I think obviously there's a lot of things in. If you wouldn't mind me just putting in here, in an advanced society, people of course are always encouraged to come up with ideas, ask questions. And what I know from this whole Muskrat Falls thing is that first we've seen being interfered with, then we've seen changes in legislations, then we had independent reviews with perimeters that were, put around them. Ordinary citizens who have otherwise normal jobs and go on with their life, they were all called naysayers and conspiracy theorists regardless of their background or their expertise or where they sat before. And the other big message was, it's too late to stop, it's too late to stop it, it's too late to stop it. Then we had a government who obviously has fallen tremendously in the polls. Obviously Muskrat had something to do with that, but in between all this, the government put out a huge public relations campaign, conducted a poll which they made public. Who knows what polls were done before but that were not made public, that said, oh, look, more than 50% support, so therefore we're great, when of course we knew what that had transpired from. And what we're talking about and what you'd like to talk about now is when you're talking about vision, when you're talking about allowing Newfoundland and Labrador, whether it be like Hydro-Quebec or Quebec and how it treats its society, when we look at PEI and the growth of its tourism and what they've done. I mean, I say, 1 million people off to see Anne of Green Gables. Look at the absolute tremendous beauty and opportunity in Newfoundland and Labrador, and, what is it going to take and what kind of vision should we be really having? And it's a fair conversation. So in the absence of the government allowing this conversation to take place, and as far as I'm concerned, they're all red flags that something's very wrong. Danny, give us the overview of what potentials are there for this. Tell us what it really could be like if we went down this path.
Thank you. Yes, and just to, to wrap up kind of where we were with the other issue, I'd just like to caption it from my point of view, is that there's no question that negligence and mismanagement has led us to the crisis that we have. I look forward to the PUB being able to define what needs to be done now to secure the generation that we need, the upgrades that are going to have to be done at Holyrood, the upgrades that are going to have to be done with the transmission system, and I'm hopeful that common sense will prevail and that financial commitments will be made to give us the reliability for the next 8 years that we deserve. But there's no question that in order to have a modern society, a modern economy developing, we've got to look beyond where we are right now and look to 10, 20, 100 years in the future as opposed to yesterday and tomorrow. And the road tunnel is exactly that. I mean, Mr. Kierans, who passed away this year, certainly was a tremendous proponent of it. Mr. Plowman has certainly added to it, along with the mayors in Labrador Straits and the Northern Peninsula. Everybody has certainly done their yeoman service to trying to get this issue raised to the top of the public agenda, and for all the right reasons. There's no question that, as I've already outlined, it would give 100% reliability to the cable coming to the island. It would give a 100% reliable transportation link with Canada, and we've all seen the last week or so of torture and torment that the people of Labrador have had to endure because of the adverse ice conditions and the unreliability of a ferry. And, the winters are not going to go away. I even doubt whether global warming is coming, as they said, in the rush that it is. We are not going to have this place turn into to Orlando any time in the future. So we got to deal with what we have, and there's no way that no matter what ferry you get, it's going to still be a ferry. And we have millions of people right now that are considering coming to Newfoundland, the island of Newfoundland, throughout North America in particular, and 98% of them are saying absolutely no because of the cost, because of the unreliability, and because of what they have to endure for a 10 or 12-hour ferry ride from Nova Scotia to North Sydney. And, that was the conclusion that the government of PEI came to many years ago. And in 1993, the government of Canada at the time recognized the merits of it all, and they went and made a deal, the same kind of deal that we can do now. And that was to be able to take an approach to put a fixed link to PEI. In 1997, that was opened. The cost was $1.3 billion. And, of course, in the first year, the number of tourists went from 700,000 to 1.2 million. And there's no question that this is the biggest industry in PEI. And as you said, they had little more than Green Gables to go look at. The tourism package that Newfoundland and Labrador has to offer, and especially the island of Newfoundland that people want to come to, every cove and every place, including the capital city, has tremendous attractions to tourists. And right now, for example, in 2012, the number of non-residents coming to Newfoundland dropped from 149,000 10 years ago to 106,000 in 2012 through Marine Atlantic. We're seeing now almost as many people come across the straits on one ship, the Apollo, as comes across to Newfoundland with 4 or 5 ships on Marine Atlantic. There's no question that we're losing billions. Right now we have a tourist industry that's $1 billion. There is absolutely no doubt that with this transportation link, where people would be able to come down in a matter of 15, 20 minutes, come across the straits, we would see the numbers go up in the hundreds of thousands in the very the short term, bringing to all kinds of jobs, thousands of jobs for decades to come in the tourism, the construction, the retail industry. The other thing that people don't realize about this as well, Sue, is that if you grew up on the Labrador coast, we don't have healthcare facilities that are capable of giving any kind of secondary level of care. Yes, we have wonderful nursing stations. We have tremendous nurses. Nurse Taylor in the Straits over years ago, and Dr. Grenfell. They built up something that really attended to the people's needs. But over the last 50 years, there is no question that there's been tremendous hardship and pain suffered by people all along the Labrador coast, particularly from Lanzaclare to Cartwright, because their loved ones could not get the treatment they deserved, simply because the plane could not get in to take out the person, or an ambulance could not deliver them to where they wanted to go in St. Anthony by ferry. The ferry or plane, these are situations where the turnaround time, if the weather is good, still interfered and still ended up that people died simply because they couldn't get to St. Anthony. What would happen now with a road tunnel? It would allow these people to be able to be put into an ambulance and be able to get to St. Anthony, be able to get to care, and certainly, no question, be able to save lives. And, when I went to Norway, as I said, I dealt with the experts over there. I saw what they've done, and the cost that they're having for the building of the tunnels is somewhere around $15 million per kilometer, and that's to have 2 tunnels, 2 tubes, they call it, as I explained earlier. And this would enable the people to be having traffic coming each way, and also for safety purposes, every 1,000 feet they have the two tunnels interconnect, so that if they had a problem in one of the tunnels, they would be able to turn and be able to come back through on the in the other tube or the other tunnel that would be about 30 feet separating the two of them. But these tunnels have been built routinely over there, and right now it is the estimation on the current cost with a proper geotechnical study being done is probably in the area of $500 million to be able to do two tunnels, each 17 kilometers in distance, and having the capacity for road traffic. The other thing that certainly no is the fact that the food supply of the whole island would be on a timely and no doubt expensive basis. As a matter of fact, the Grocery Association of Canada said that right now fresh produce is being charged an extra 25 to 40% more in Newfoundland than anywhere else in Canada, simply because of the spottage that occurs as a result of not being able to have a proper transportation system. So, unbelievable to the number of jobs that would be created. Unbelievable to have the comfort of being able to access healthcare facilities if you're on the Labrador side. And there's also no question that to be able to develop a modern economy, we just got to come of age when it comes to our transportation system. And now we are, in the right place at the right time, that we can provide 100% reliability to our power supply to the island, and indeed the people of Labrador certainly deserve no less from this government, from their provincial government, than to see the redirecting of this $1 billion towards building this tunnel, getting on with the job, and you all know as well the political issue of Labrador versus the island, and certainly I believe that if this tunnel was built, it would go a long way to bringing Newfoundland and Labrador together, politically like it's never been before. And I also would be remiss if I didn't say to the people of Newfoundland and the government of Newfoundland that if you don't do this, if you don't come and see that this amount of money is going to be directed to building this essential transportation link, then be prepared for the wrath of the people, because I really don't believe at the end of the day, when Labradorians look in the mirror and they say, yeah, we're going to get our 400 or 500 jobs during the construction period and 20 or 30 jobs after, I don't believe that anybody in Labrador is going to be prepared to settle for that. There's got to be more. There's got to be a new deal. And let's start with the tunnel. Let's get the Trans-Labrador Highway paved. Let's get the cables going down to develop the mines and the thousands of jobs in the Labrador Trough and down in the Voisey Bay area, and connect up these people on the coast so that they can also enjoy having good green electricity and being able to operate their businesses on the same rates as everybody else in the province has come to expect.
Yeah, I mean, recently, Daddy, there was, a report. I'm trying to remember now which newspaper it was, but somebody came in here and they said, wow, the wealth of Newfoundland and Labrador, we didn't know. I think it was out of the United States. But, look at your unemployment rate. How can it remain so high when you have such a wealth of resources that you have? And then we've heard things in the past, of course, like I think of aluminum smelters. They always come to the top of my mind for one reason. You can have them in Iceland. You can have them now, talking about in Greenland. You can have it in Russia. You can have it in Quebec. You can have it in Norway, but we can't have that in Labrador. And then we have the tourism and the type of tourism we can talk about developing with this absolutely beautiful Newfoundland and Labrador that we have. It's just incomparable to anything else in the world. It offers so much. you talk about the issues related to health and travel with health, and then bringing Newfoundland and Labrador together as we've never been before. I think about youth. I think about youth traveling for sporting events and getting involved and going back and forth and visiting with each other. And, you know, when we think about it's cheaper for our youth to go visit and see what Florida is like than it is for Labradorians to come here or Newfoundlanders to go to Labrador. And you know, all these things, this lack of vision, we've been hearing, no, we can't have secondary processing. Everything has to be shipped out raw. I mean, there's no, you know, we can't do anything with the energy. And when we're talking about energy that's just simply thrown away and not attached to something that's in Labrador, well, really, we're not doing any secondary processing with it. We're not using it the way we need to use it. And, you know, this vision of looking and wondering, you know, how is it Norway gets so many people? How is it Iceland gets so many visitors? How is it they survive and thrive with the industries they have with, you know, roughly about half our population, and you know, they're still kicking, they're still going, despite the mess in the United States and the banking system and the hit they took there, yet they're still going strong. And we sit here in Newfoundland and Labrador, probably per capita the wealthiest piece of geography in North America, and we don't have these transportation systems that are, as you point out, are so vitally important for growth. You know, you look at PEI, the size of PEI, just the sheer size of it. I mean, this tiny island that now has a connectivity with a bridge, and we look at what that does, and then we look at this huge geography of Newfoundland and Labrador, the disconnect that's always been there between our people that really needs to be brought together in a real way. And, you know, where is the vision? What is wrong with us truly believing in ourselves? Not these words that just say, you know, we're hip, we're cool, or, you know, we're the greatest new province and this and that. I mean, forgetting all the spin words and the buzzwords. Why is it we're just simply not doing what every country and every other jurisdiction has found necessary to do to build what they have? I mean, we look at some European nations and the size of their geography and how many people they actually pack in every year, and you know, the things that people can go see, the connectivity of Europe and European people versus us just trying to get Newfoundland and Labrador together. I mean, there's just so much there that can be accomplished. I mean, what's it going to take, Danny, to really just open up here and just have people really starting to believe, so that we're not sitting at 12% unemployment with the greatest wealth in North America per capita? What's it going to take?
Well, it's going to take the completion of this project. There's no question about it. And, of course, the key to getting this project done is political will. There is absolutely no doubt that the support for the project to be done exists throughout Newfoundland and Labrador, and I am certainly going to do whatever I can. I know others are going to join me as we go forward in the weeks and months ahead to get into the schools, especially along the coast of Labrador. I'm looking forward to that, to showing them the presentation that I have with a video of exactly how it's been done in Norway, and with the way that this project can be financed. I want to get our young people engaged in this. I want to get business people engaged. I want to, to obviously harness all of the political will that we can. And I'm very grateful for right now the provincial leader of our party, Dwight Ball, has certainly endorsed this concept. And so has the provincial caucus. I am very pleased to hear that, and I look forward to presenting a motion to a resolution to the next AGM of our party this coming fall, where I hope that the party in convention will be able to endorse this project, and it will then make it to a prominent part in our platform for the next general election. At the same time, we're going to need the support of the people in Ottawa. We certainly believe that having a project that will be able to have such major benefit to the province of Quebec requires the participation of the federal government, and that's why I've asked our MP, Yvonne Jones, to sit down with the new leader of our party, Mr. Trudeau, who is a nation builder and following in the footsteps of our greatest Prime Minister, Pierre Trudeau. And I've asked her to sit down with him and the Liberal caucus up there to get a stamp of approval for this project for all of the right reasons. and certainly if she wants me to go to Ottawa to make that same type of presentation to them as I did to members of our provincial caucus, I would certainly look forward to doing that. It's just unbelievable right now that the provincial government that we have and Mr. McGrath, the present transportation minister, I mean, what an abysmal disappointment and failure he is to Labrador. When he certainly knows better. He was president of the Combined Councils of Labrador, and he's behaving, like a Neanderthal when it comes to this particular issue. I mean, they have really not even paid lip service to the fact that it is a issue of public importance, and you can have whatever proposals you want for a new ferry. You can put whatever steel you want in one, but at the end of the day, it's still going to be a ferry. And we just got to start thinking outside the box. I believe that this project, of course, happening in this region of our province, will give the kind of hope to our young people, give them the kind of economic.
Hello?
Gas station or those things, and be able to to get some stability back into a region of the province that's obviously not receiving the benefit of offshore oil. So there's no way can we just sit back and to make sure that it is a prominent part of our platform. Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here. I think the one thing I said about this program, we wanted to get as much information, obviously, out as we could. But there is somebody calling in here now, so I'm assuming they want to ask a question. Do you mind if we take the call?
Oh, not a problem, yeah.
Okay, 1 second then. Let's put him on here. Hello, are you on? You're on the show. You have a question for Danny Dumaresque.
Hi, Danny. Hi, Sue. How you doing?
Good.
Good. Just more of a discussion topic. I notice that everywhere in the world, population bases are a very important aspect of not only a good society, but a good tax base. I'm just wondering, I mean, this is something you never, ever, ever hear about with any government, is a true effort towards population growth. And with the concerns of our lack of ability to keep electricity within the province, I just would like to hear you guys discuss a little bit about possibly growing a population base and what would be required energy-wise in order to support that, to say having 2 million people or 3 million people living in the province.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I'm glad that you brought that up because we've seen a decline of 30 to 40% in the population of the Labrador Straits and Northern Peninsula over the last 15 years. We've just seen a downgrading of the Western Newfoundland Hospital as a result of population decline, but there's no question in my mind that by using our electricity as a competitive advantage and doing what Quebec has done in the past and is doing now, they have brought in thousands of new jobs. And the industrialization of Labrador, particularly in the mining, we have 10,000 people in Labrador West now, but really that's only the tip of the iceberg. We certainly have the potential to have 40 or 50,000 people in the Labrador Trough area of Western Labrador, and this particular project of the tunnel, there's no question that with the potential of 1 million people traveling to and from the island, it's going to mean we got to support them, we got to feed them, we got to entertain them, we got to give them places to rest. And so all of these things mean that there's going to be new opportunities for our young people who want to look at establishing a business, and whether it be the gas stations like we just seen as a part of the Trans-Labrador Highway, the places in Port Hope there, and the benefit that that network has seen. Well, can you just imagine? Like right now, we are depending on the Marine Atlantic to bring us 100,000 people. Well, imagine with that tunnel being built. And the 138 is now down to Kaskaska, and there's no question it will be down to Blanc by the time you would finish the tunnel. We would be then shoulder to shoulder with 18 million people in Ontario and Quebec. And there is absolutely no doubt that many people in that region of our country would want to come to Newfoundland and Labrador. One of the reasons would be to just experience the tunnel. I would suggest that would be a tourism attraction in itself. Not to mention, the 3 World Heritage sites that we have on the go on the Northern Peninsula and in Red Bay. This is the kind of initiatives that government must take to increase the population, to get young people coming back to stay in our regions, because the bottom line is if we can't compete with the rest of the country in terms of giving young people a level of income and a stability of a business going forward, there's no way are they going to stay around. So these are the types of initiatives that we got to have. We got to have the industrial complexes, as for example. There's no reason why we shouldn't go out and market to the world that we can put a steel facility in Newfoundland and Labrador. I mean, we got 200 or 300 years at least of very high-grade iron ore, and that's the main component to the pellets is the main component of making steel. There's no question that the fact that we got that support, that source of iron, we should be able to send it downstream in our own province, providing electricity to that type of a smelter, and in the process it would be creating thousands of jobs. And I'll give you just a quick example of how that has made a tremendous difference. In Sept-Îles, Quebec, where I frequently go over the last 15, 20 years, I've seen what's happened in that community. 50 years ago, it wasn't much different than Marystown. Newfoundland was a fishing village for the most part. But when the railway came to it, it started to grow. But now that the Quebec government has attracted an aluminum company, Alouette Aluminum, of course, along with the transshipment of iron ore from Labrador and in Shefferville and Fermont, Quebec, it's transformed that place into a tremendous buzzing town where young people have stayed home. They're going to work in that aluminum factory, making over $100,000 a year. And these are the types of things that got to be put in place to be able to attract people, stay home with their families, and raise new families. And that's the kind of strategy that a proactive and modern political agenda has got to provide to the people to be able to give them security that they deserve and the potential for population growth that you point out.
So is this a good response, caller, and how do you see yourself as part of that?
Oh, it's a fantastic response. Obviously there needs to be more than just small growths here and there that are short-term projects. There needs to be long-term initiatives put in place which add industry for hundreds of years as opposed to decades. As myself, I'm a young business person, and I plan on investing my energies in doing what I can to grow the population of the province and ensure that I have a place for my children and grandchildren to grow up and work and thrive. It's just, it's always been disheartening that we keep the status quo, which is, as long as we're around 500,000 and the population's not going down too fast, things aren't that bad. We are the only place that celebrates a minor in-migration. We don't. It's kind of sad because we should be celebrating. Oh, look, we'll be to 1 million people in the next 10 years, but there's no way to foresee that now. It's disheartening for someone who doesn't want to give up in the province.
Yeah, absolutely, and it can be different. There's no question. I went to Labrador City in '78, and when I went there, I met up with people from Portugal that. In the late 60s, certainly we never had enough people in the province to to build the economy. At that time, we were very well established with our fishery. The fishery was giving a lot of gainful employment to people, supporting communities all throughout the province, but that's collapsed, and certainly now more than ever, we need to have more of the Valley Inco smelters, more of the that industrial complex where we have the vertical integrated complexes, of course, starting with the primary material in Labrador West, similar to what we saw happen in Boise with the nickel. And the government of the day 10 years ago took the right position and said that, where there was a economically viable situation for secondary processing, then that mineral must be processed in Newfoundland and Labrador. I'd certainly like to see the same application applied to the iron ore part of our resource base, and there's no question that more of our product should be put into pellets, and if you take it and put it into pellets, you take companies like Tata Steel, who has major steel companies. I think we also should, as a government, sit down with these people and say, look, you're moving to take this resource. It's going to be good for 200 years. You're going to put it into pellets. Well, let's go a step further. Let's go and see how we can assist you using our leverage of cheap hydropower to get a steel mill into this province and not have to ship out that extra 1,000 long-term high-paying jobs that would come from that. And that's the kind of way we have to build our province. And we're so blessed to have the resource that we do have in electricity. As Sue pointed out an hour ago, we're still sitting on 2,200 megawatts of power from the Gull Island. And in 27 years' time, not much more than a big blink, we do have the 5,000 megawatts of the Upper Churchill back under the control of this province, and certainly that's the kind of advantage that we got to apply to this resource, leverage these jobs, and that's the kind of thing that's certainly going to fundamentally change our province. But we got to have that reliable transportation link. We got to have that fixed connection so that anytime, day or night, people can come and go, and goods and services can go back and forth, and that's the type of initiatives that are going to be province building and fundamentally change the future prospects for our children and grandchildren. And in my personal situation, I'm after picking up a few years, still only 54, but I'm not into the situation now where I've got to do it for me. I'm doing it for my children and their grandchildren, because I hope that they will stay around and they don't have to go off like so many of our friends and relatives have done over the last 20 years, in particular, to other parts of Canada and other parts of the world to earn a meaningful income.
Caller, you heard the answer, of course, and you said you're a young business person in the province, and listening to what Danny has had to say about the tunnel and potential there. As a young business person, would this change your investment opportunities in the future? Do you think it's something you would take advantage of?
Yeah, I mean, I'm in the automotive sector, so any link to the mainland would bring shipping costs down huge. I mean, one of the biggest factors we face when bringing product in from the rest of the mainland is the absolute insane cost that it is to get the car on the ferry. I mean, you can ship a car from California to Halifax for cheaper than you can get it from Halifax to anywhere on the island. So, I mean, any form of fixed link, I mean, obviously it's just going to bring costs down enormously for my industry in specific. But, I mean, not only that, every other means of bringing people from the mainland to the island, obviously any retail sector, any service sector is going to see huge booms in business and tourism and everything else. Yeah, and also just another example is the fishery, which I know fairly well. It would cost you $1,000. You can get a container of fish shipped out of Montreal, $1,000 less or more than you can out of Halifax. And Newfoundland and Labrador
puts her tens of thousands of these containers of fish. Obviously, millions would be coming back into the pockets of fishermen as a result of being able to have this kind of cheaper rate. And the other thing that's happening is we can't have a fresh fish operation, and everybody now knows you can't sell cod. Well, you still can sell cod if you could get it to the northeastern United States fresh. And this is the kind of thing that could happen with a fixed link.
We're right at the end of the program. I guess we have about a minute left. I want to thank that caller for his input. I think it was great at the end of the program to hear what type of, what a young person here really thinks about this type of approach. Danny, with a minute left, is there anything you want to conclude and say on where we should be going?
Well, Sue, I just want to say thank you, and as far where we're going, let's, like I said, in terms of Labradorians, let's have a real long look in the mirror and have some solid conversation over the weeks and months ahead so that we can see where we should be in 10, 20 years' time. Let's be aggressive about the New Deal and New Agenda. And for all of the province, let's look at now holding the feet to the fire of the people that are in charge of our electrical system so that we can have full transparency and let the PUB do their job and make sure that we will put in place the upgrades and improvements in the generation and transportation and transmission of our electrical system so that, as I said many days ago, we bring 100% reliability to our system, except for acts of God, and that will then go a long way to being able to stabilize our environment for development, and combine it with spending money wisely on Muskrat Falls and canceling the deal in Nova Scotia. All that will make for a better tomorrow.
Thanks very much, Danny. It's been a great pleasure. There's a lot of information out there. And let's keep all this up, and then hopefully within a short enough while we'll be talking about this issue again. Thank you for your time this evening.
Absolutely enjoyed it, and look forward to hearing some of the feedback, and maybe in a month or two we'll do it again.
Thank you very much, Danny.
Take care. Good evening.
Bye-bye.